Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Deborah Oladeji, and I will be your moderator for today. To to be able to know if I'm speaking with people, please, I would like comments. I would like people to put in like the page. I need engagement during this session. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. I see 10 people already. Please, in case you have vets on your timeline, your status, please send the link to them so that they can register for this event. It's never too late until the end of this program. So make sure to please send this link to them so that they can register, they can get the link and they can join in. Or you can send them the YouTube link so that they join in. Meanwhile, I would really love it if you guys keep sending in comments to the page. We need engagement so that we know that we are talking with the right people before we start today's event. Thank you. Again, my name is Deborah Oladeji, the current outlier from Farmalat. Thank you, Ma Nanancha. Nanancha. I really appreciate you. Thank you. Can hear you loud and clear. Thank you. Please, other people, please put in your comments. Oh, we are live. We are here. We can see you. It will be very, very interesting. This event has to be as engaging as possible. This event is not something that you just come to listen. It's going to be engaging. It's going to be enlightening, and we have a lot to offer for you. Our guest is already available, and we hope to have as much interactive session as we can have. So thank you. We would be here as we wait for others to join in. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Jeremy Barnabas from Saudi Arabia. That's amazing. From Saudi, all the way from Saudi Arabia. Yes, please, as you're introducing yourself, please say where you are coming from. If possible, you can put in your profession. I personally am a recent graduate from the University of Ibadan, and I studied veterinary medicine. So if you're a student, if you are a lecturer, if you're any profession you are, please put it in the comment section. We want to be able to know the type of people that we are interacting with, so that we can properly have an amazing interaction with you. Thank you. Thank you. 1635, please, again, we are here for an amazing event. While we are here, let me read out topic. The name of the topic for today is the role of veterinarians, opportunities and the economic benefits with international animal transport. And we'll be speaking with Dr. Nelva J. Bryant. She is DVM MPH Airline industry veterinarian, and she's a great person. I love her. We got to interact this year actually, and I personally am very, very interested in pest transportation in Nigeria, and I've been invested in things like pet transportation intrastate and interstate. So I reached out to Dr. Nelva Bryant, and we had a discussion on things. So when I joined Farmalat, I just felt like she's perfect for this conversation. This conversation in Nigeria, where we need to understand what we are doing and the veterinary profession, especially in Nigeria. Thank you, Mr. Barnabas, BVM, ABU Zaria. I really appreciate you. Please, others, please introduce yourself. We need to have an interaction. This is an online event. Definitely, it's an online event, but we want as much interaction as possible so that it feels like, oh, we are here together in the same space. This is an interaction as much as possible. It's not a lecture. We are not just here to listen. We are here to engage with each other. So let me quickly cite the amazing person who will be bringing on stage today. She's an amazing person. And let me give a citation. Dr. Nelva Bryant has a unique veterinary career. As a retired LCDR in the U.S. Public Health Service, she held various positions in the U.S. federal government, where she was able to benefit animal and public health. She's currently working in the airline industry, where she's actually the first Delta Airline veterinarian. Her mission is to improve pet transport via promoting animal welfare, education, and veterinary oversight. Yes, it's quite a lot, but it's amazing. So I'm going to be giving highlights. She serves as the first, like I said, serves as the first industry in-house veterinarian at Delta Airlines. She has 30 years of experience in the field of veterinary medicine. So yes, she's not a newbie in this, like we are. She has been in the veterinary profession for at least 30 years. She has a license. She's a licensed veterinarian since 1993. I'm sure some of us were not born at this time. So, with the ability to practice in Georgia and New York, she's a retired LCDR in the U.S. Public Health Service, serving 10 years plus at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC. USDA accredited veterinarian, category 1 and 2. Past position at CDC includes quarantine veterinary medical officer, where she was the dog importation subject matter expert. She was a veterinary public health consultant and chief veterinary pathologist. Currently active in veterinary medicine, working in the airline industry and in small animal practice. Completed training in live animal transportation at the International Air Transportation Association Center, Amsterdam, Netherlands. Member of the Spruce Pets Veterinary Review Board, member of the American Veterinary Medical Association, and she serves as governing board member of American Humane. So this is just to prove that we did not bring someone small. She has enough experience. She knows what she's doing, and she has enough timeline to be able to talk with us today. All the way from thanks, thanks, Professor Abdullahi. I really appreciate your presence here. Public health veterinarian, thanks for joining us. Please let's not forget to send in good day, Ma, my dean from the University of Ibadan. I really appreciate your presence here, Ma. So please, let's make sure to send this link in case some people are not yet here. Please remind them to be here. This is not the time to be doing something else. Thank you, Mr. David Adedokun. We really appreciate your presence here. Please, let's continue to send in messages on the comment section. We want this engagement to be as engaging as possible. We want this event to be as engaging as possible. Next up would be inviting the person I just cited. I just cited our citation. Sorry about that. Dr. Nelva Bryant. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. Wow, this is great. And just to see folks are joining in for all these different countries, I love it. Thank you so much. Yes. And the citation you have for me, honestly, I'm very humble, and honestly, God has been good to me. I'll just put it that way. I feel like my career has really been blessed. It hasn't been easy, guys. Okay. It's been 30 years of sometimes going down one path and a door closes and you learn to pivot and keep moving forward. So that's kind of what I've always done. I've always thought that veterinary medicine, we've got to think outside the box kind of thing and go for opportunities that come before you. So that's kind of what I've done with my career the whole time. Any questions before I get started or anything? Again, thank you everyone for joining, and thank you, Dr. Deborah. I really appreciate this opportunity. I think this is great, really, really great. So any questions before we get started, or anything you want me to address before I get started in my just a little brief presentation of my career and things I've done?
Okay, I think we should first go through your presentation, and then, like we discussed, there's been some expectations from some people. When people fill the form, thanks for filling the form. We got your expectations. We're going to discuss. We'll go through discussion, the two of us, and then we'll now get the questions from people after. So please go through your presentation. presentation first. Thank you,
Perfect.
ma'am.
I guess whomever's going to share my screen and we can get going. Perfect. All right, I'm Dr. Nelva Bryant. I'm known as I gave myself the term as being the pet travel expert because I'm the only veterinarian working in the airline industry that's actually providing this type of information. You can go ahead and advance the slide, please. And I don't know if you can see that very well, but my background is I did get my Doctor of Veterinary Medicine degree in 1993 from Cornell University. I actually was on a pathway of pursuing veterinary pathology. That was my thought when I was graduating from vet school. Actually, the interesting thing is when I went to vet school, I thought I just wanted to be in clinical practice, small animal practice, but I started learning different things and different opportunities while I was in veterinary school. And that kind of guided my pathway a little bit different. I also did a laboratory animal pathology residency at CDC because I was trying to kind of, again, find a niche for myself and focusing on potentially laboratory animals and everything. So I was doing that. I also have an MPH. It's kind of interesting, guys. You can see the span of time differences. I graduated in 1993 from vet school, but good 20 years later, I completed my Master of Public Health degree. And it was because I wanted to do it all along, but life happens, you know, and I completed it either way. You might say, oh, gosh, 20 years, but it's something I wanted to do and pursue. I noticed throughout my career that I really liked public health issues, such as just anything dealing with the public health. And as far as veterinary public health issues, I thought were very important. So I completed that. In 2018, I retired. I was in the United States Public Health Service. And in 20 years, I retired. And that was in 2018. And through those 20 years, I actually had various experiences or various opportunities working in the United States, being in the public health service. I initially joined the Army and then switched to the public health service, actually, to be exact with that. But I joined the Army, and after, which is kind of weird for U.S. veterinarians. Usually, U.S. veterinarians join the Army prior to vet school, and the Army actually they have a program where they'll pay for their veterinary college education, and then they owe the Army back time as far as working as a veterinarian within the Army. But I was kind of a little bit strange because I did it after the fact. So I served for 3 years. I was at the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. I was doing some great stuff because by that time I had already completed a veterinary pathology residency. So I was put in a position as a staff pathologist. I was doing electron microscopy. I was doing some cool stuff in that role, but great position. But ultimately, I really didn't like being in the Army. So I switched to the United States Public Health Service, and that gave me a lot of opportunities to work with different federal agencies in the United States. I worked Food and Drug Administration. That was a position more veterinary toxicologic pathology position. Then I did USDA, and that was food safety inspection. Just, it was a little bit different, but I actually enjoyed it. Then I switched to going back to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And that was my ultimate goal because that brought me back into veterinary pathology. While there, I was serving as the chief veterinary pathologist, set up a diagnostic lab for animals at the facility. I became a public health consultant. And that's actually after getting my Master of Public Health degree that gave me more opportunities to get out of the laboratory setting. So now I can work on veterinary public health issues. And that really honestly opened the door for a lot of things. Like I said, I was a consultant for consultant role. Then I switched to the quarantine branch and became the dog importation subject matter expert. So with that, I started seeing animal travel. Well, not seeing animal travel, but transportation of dogs, the requirements. And I was really interested that I actually had opportunities where I was working at the airport here in Atlanta. It just opened up a lot of opportunities, and I felt that was a good thing for me. All in all, I've got good, say, 25 years of clinical practice experience. Either I was doing part-time or as a relief veterinarian, and that's more or less working. If another veterinarian wants a day off, you work on their behalf, basically. And I'm presently working with my crazy schedule that I have. I still do work part-time at a clinical practice just to kind of stay involved. Next slide, please. What I'm doing right now is I am working with Delta Airlines. I'm their industry first on-staff veterinarian. I've been with them since 2018. I'm probably the only, I know for a fact I'm the only United States veterinarian, but it might be possibly worldwide working in the airline industry as a veterinarian. And I share a lot of air transportation education at major veterinary conferences or animal transportation conferences. I do things with zoo animal conferences as well. So I'm kind of busy with all of that. I've authored quite a few articles here locally, and the one that I'm most proud of is I don't know if you guys have access to it, but the current edition of Ettinger's textbook of veterinary internal medicine. I have a chapter in there on international pet travel. I always say it's only 2 pages, but it's packed and at least finally gives fellow veterinarians an opportunity or insight on what it takes to get a pet prepared for international pet travel. So I'm really excited about that opportunity. Crazy, believe it or not, I'm quoted in many articles that are published in the New York Times. I had something in TripAdvisor fairly recently and a few other things there. As Dr. Deborah mentioned, I'm a governing board member of American Humane, and just a few other things I've done over these past few years. One of the main things that I'm doing is that I've done is since 2020, I developed When Pets Fly. It's my platform to share pet-centric travel education. I say pet-centric because there is education out there for people preparing their pets for air travel, but it only gives like logistics. You know, you need certain documents. You might need a crate, but it's not really focusing on the pet. So what I'm doing is really focusing on the pet and including animal welfare in all the decisions as far as preparation for that pet for air travel. You can next slide, please. So veterinary medicine, honestly, my whole career, I've just been kind of always open to doing something a little bit different. I mean, within reason, I'll be honest. I took opportunities. I'm originally from New York State, and the opportunities that I took was between New York State and Georgia, where I'm residing right now in Georgia. It's all on the eastern part of the United States, you know, maybe 2-hour flight from my home. So I figured that's good for me. I would never go that far from my family because my family still is in New York, and I just don't want to be without them. But I've always thought outside the box. Next slide, please. One of the coolest things I did throughout my career, again, I retired from the United States Public Health Service. And one of the coolest things that we get to, well, I can't say cool, but one of the things that got my attention more than anything as far as the United States Public Health Service is the fact that we respond to disaster relief or humanitarian assistance programs. And so I had the opportunity to deploy in response to Hurricane Katrina. That was very devastating here in the United States. A lot of people were displaced. And with that, of course, pets were displaced. And to assist with that, you know, as far as, you know, again, the United States Public Health Service, we have a sector of veterinarians that are in it. And we were activated and basically participated in this event. It was in Baton Rouge. And what I did personally is I provided leadership for the care of the displaced animals. I was actually helping the pet owners reunite with their pets. And it was a very enjoyable experience to see that happen. Next slide, please. Sorry, that photo didn't come up. Don't know why. I also, as far as being a United States Public Health Service, like I said, we did humanitarian assistance type programs. Man, these were cool photos I had, but it was basically one was a photo of me standing next to I guess a police officer, because whatever we did, it was there was guarded officers around protecting us. And the other photo was me actually on my helicopter ride, because during this process, what during the assistance program, you wouldn't believe, it was the longest day ever of my life. I was on a flight from, where did I go? I was on a plane, and then I was on a bus, and then I got on a boat, a smaller boat to get a large, like kind of a cruise ship in one day. It was the longest day ever, but it was a really enjoyable experience. I got my first helicopter ride, which personally, if you know me personally, you'll know that I'm actually I'm really not an adventure junkie person. There's a lot of things that do scare me, but I'm glad I stepped out of my comfort zone. I was on a Black Hawk helicopter, which if you would have asked me to willingly do it, I would have said no, but I had no choice, and I was exposed to it, and I loved it. So I enjoy the fact that throughout my career, I've kind of stepped out of my comfort zone and done some things that really were exciting. Next slide, please. Oh, man. Guys, I'm really sorry, because let me stop for a second. Dr. Deborah, can you see? I don't see the photos that are in this one, and I don't know what happened. So I imagine you guys can't see them either. Is that correct? Hold on one second. Either way, I'm going to keep going. Another thing that I was able to do as a member of my role within the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, I did a temporary duty assignment, and I was working on a project on a Native American reservation in Arizona. It was called the RMSF Rocky Mountain Spotted Fever Rodeo. We were trying to prevent the spread of this disease on the reservation, and it was transmitted by ticks. And this was actually a One Health project. We partner with animal pharmaceutical companies, PetSmart Charities donated a lot of funds for that. And also there was portions of, within CDC, we had the environmental health officers, as well as medical officers. And we all worked together to eradicate this disease on that reservation. The veterinary portion of it was that we went there and actually did a spay and neuter clinic on the reservation. They had a facility that was like an old, like a daycare center. And we went in and made it a makeshift veterinary facility. And I apologize, guys. There were photos here, and I don't know why they haven't. Hi. The photos, I don't understand why they have not come through, but there were photos, because I wanted to highlight something here, is that it was a team of us. We had veterinary students from, Virginia Tech. It was actually some veterinary students help us from a Virginia Tech University. And we also had some graduate students from North Dakota State University that helped out. These students from North Dakota State University, actually graduate students, they all were actually from different countries within Africa. So it was so cool that I got an opportunity to meet different people and learn different cultures and learn from folks. I'm sorry, I don't really get the opportunity to meet everyone in different cultures, especially from the African continent. So it was a great opportunity to meet and work with everyone. Next slide, please. Man. My role at the quarantine branch, as I said, I was a dog importation SME, subject matter expert. Really had a deep dive into the U.S. Oops, can you back up one? Okay. But my role, like I said, with CDC, it was a dog importation subject matter expert. No, back up. One more. No. Okay. I was a dog importation SME and participated in multiple opportunities. And that's what got me into the opportunity of wondering about the airline and the airport and what's going on there. In 2018, like I mentioned, I was retiring after 20 years of active duty service in the public health service. I was looking for opportunities, and Delta, lo and behold, same time frame, Delta was advertising a position for a veterinarian. And I thought it would be perfect because it's allowing me to continue on with animal transportation and help with what they're doing. So I went for it basically. And I can just tell you a little background with that. I had 2 interviews with the role. I made it through the first interview. And during the second interview, I don't know what came over me, but I'm normally kind of a quiet, shy person. But during the interview, I decided to tell them what they needed, because a lot of the questions that they were asking me were more clinically based. And I just kind of took over the interview and said, you need a veterinarian that's going to provide you, that's familiar with animal, regulations, has connections with the federal government, state governments. And I just told them all the things they needed for that role. And I was asked, what do I have? And I said, that's what I got. And then the next question after that was, when can you start? And in my mind, I was like, this person is kidding. There's no way he's serious. But yes, he was. A day later, they said, yes, they want you to start. So I say that story to tell you, sometimes you have to, I wasn't personally trying to promote myself. I don't know what I was thinking, but I just wanted them to know that that role required more. But in the process, I was promoting myself. So I say that to say, don't be fearful of putting yourself out there in situations where you feel you're qualified. Say it. So I'm really thankful that I took off my shy. I got out of my shell of being shy for that opportunity. Go ahead. Next slide, please. And you might say, what do I do for Delta? I always look at it as I'm reviewing and revising the policies for animal transportation. It's actually a long process. In the United States, there's animal welfare regulations. There's other federal regulations depending on the type of animal, because gosh, and our federal government is split up so many different ways. You have Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, has the dog importation regulations because of trying to control rabies. Then you might have USDA, which is a totally different federal agency, and they'll have regulations for animal agriculture. And then there's Fish and Wildlife Services that has regulations for wild animals. So to keep track of all the different things is extremely important, because their transportation regulations will vary, again, based upon that type of animal. So coming in and making sure compliance with all the regulations of transportation for animals, that's what I've been doing. Next slide, please. Let me tell you a great story. This is a story about a puppy. Cute puppy was being transported from, this was probably before the pandemic. This puppy was being shipped by a breeder in California to the future pet owner in Pennsylvania. It transferred through Atlanta, and one of our ramp agents noticed that the puppy was in respiratory distress, just having really a hard time. So we did what's called a no ride. He decided we're not going to let this pet move forward, which is great. Activated our internal system that definitely, like I said, trying to monitor and make sure this is in place. So like it's an emergency response procedure. We activated it and basically did a no ride. The puppy was taken to a local veterinary hospital. And lo and behold, what happened was the puppy was in his crate. He pooped in his crate. He ate it and then aspirated. So he had fecal material going down into his lungs and into his trachea and lungs. So that's why he was in respiratory distress. It was a really touch and go. For first 5 days, I didn't think he was going to make it. But after a good, say, about 2 to 3 weeks of treatment, the puppy actually recovered. So now the next step was, how do we get him from Atlanta to Pennsylvania? And I did not want him going by cargo again. And I'm sorry, I didn't say that up front. He was going by cargo. I didn't want them to go by cargo. So I got a little soft-sided carrier myself, made a flight, and flew up to Pennsylvania to give it to the pet owner. So I was very excited to be able to do that, to make sure that puppy get to his destination safely. Next slide, please. So I have done quite a few things on behalf of Delta as far as animal transportation education. Presented, like I said earlier, at multiple conferences in the United States and internationally on Delta's behalf. I'm very excited about my interaction with the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. I think that's really great because, again, zoo animals, us helping to transport zoo animals actually helps with conservation of the animal species as they go between different zoos. So I'm really excited to be able to present and share information there with them. Also at the Association of Zoos and Zoo Veterinarians, the International Pet and Animal Transportation Association. That's another organization that I definitely present, and that's more pet focused as far as transportation, but it's actually a huge international organization. The Animal Transportation Association, I think that one's more veterinary focused as far as animal transportation. You have a lot of members there will represent shipping of horses. They have shipping of poultry, day-old chicks, and everything. So it's a great organization as well. I've also done things within the U.S. with the American Veterinary Medical Association. We had a USDA Animal Transportation Symposium that I presented. That was great too. And honestly, with all of this, I have been to a lot of cool places, Sydney, Amsterdam, Merida, Mexico, and Dubai. Does anyone know where this photo, any idea where this photo was taken from? I would say it's my new favorite place. This was in Dubai. I was there last September and everything. Beautiful, beautiful country. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, Kenny. There we go. Thank you. So like I said, in 2020, during the pandemic, I don't know, I'll just give some, being honest, during the pandemic, a lot of things were happening in the airline industry. They were losing money big time. And I was laid off from Delta during that time frame. But I still felt strongly about sharing pet travel education. So I started When Pets Fly during that time frame. I say in the interim, what did I do? Well, I'm a veterinarian, no matter what to the core of everything I do. I'm a veterinarian. I've always practiced, either part-time or every once in a while clinical medicine. So I went back into practice and did that during that time frame. But like I said on the side, because in my mind, I was going back to Delta. I knew I was going back to Delta. I still wanted to continue sharing pet travel education. So I started When Pets Fly. And I have a social media presence. Basically, I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I also have a YouTube page. My website is there if you want to take a look at some of the things I've done there. And then also, like I said, I published articles in a time frame, become, the book authorship of the book, and just continuing on with my sharing this pet travel education. Next slide, please. And ultimately what I found, to be honest with you, in this role, and someone was asking me yesterday, why am I doing what I'm doing? I feel that it is my purpose to share this information. I can't imagine being in a role and not sharing something that could benefit everyone. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. What I've learned throughout this experience is that all animals technically are really not properly prepared for air travel. They honestly don't know what to do to help them get prepared. And we have to consider the animal during the process. You can't expect to put an animal in a container or a crate and think they'll be perfectly fine and they'll move forward. They're going to have stress and anxiety and potentially try to break out of the container if they're not prepared. So what I've learned is, as far as the crates and containers, and this is basically small animals, the containers that are primarily used do not even actually are not fit for what's being done. They don't meet requirements. So my ultimately what I want to keep pressing on folks to do with their pets is to obtain an IATA compliant crate. And we can go into detail if you want later. I can answer questions on that, but get them acclimated to being confined in that crate. And the other is making sure they're healthy. There's a lot of situations that happen during transport. Say, unfortunately, if a pet dies, and a lot of times what happens is they'll assume that, oh, it's the airlines at fault because they died. But that is not necessarily the case. Data has shown that a lot of these pets that died during travel actually have underlying medical conditions. So you can't blame the airline for that. And that's almost the same as, I would say, God forbid, I have a heart attack on a plane. I can't turn around and blame Delta for my heart attack. If it's an underlying condition, you can't blame anyone for that. So as veterinarians, I feel we need to start doing reviewing medical records for these pets and doing maybe further diagnostic tests to determine, are they medically fit for air travel, and then giving advice on that. Because it may not be in the best interest for them to travel at all. So that's just my thought there. But these are the things that I've noticed that needs to kind of focus on as far as even with the booking. And a lot of pet owners don't even know the requirements for traveling with their pets internationally or even domestically. Sometimes it might vary from going. We have the continental U.S. and then we have Hawaii. When you go to Hawaii or other U.S. territories, the requirements are different, but people don't realize that here in the U.S. So either way, some observations I made. And gosh, guys, thank you so much for joining. And gosh, this really makes me feel good. Next slide, please. And that is it for me. That is my two sweet dogs. The one on the left is Naya. She's 9 years old now, American Bulldog. And the one on the right, his name is Pac, P-A-C. He is a 4-year-old French Bulldog. But any questions, I'm open to them. And I really appreciate the opportunity to share this information with you. Can't hear you.
Thank you, Dr. Neweber.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, your story has been enlightening. You didn't just tell us, oh, you went to the airline, you got the job.
No.
You started from the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's the first statement you made. So I think it's the first statement, yeah. You wanted to be in the clinical practice,
I
but
did.
things just change. And I think that's very, very important for us, especially as Nigerians. A lot of people, when I was still in school, I actually thought that everything about vet medicine was about clinical practice. Well, really, I think if we actually look at it, if we are retrospective about it, there's quite a lot in the vet career. There's quite a lot. There's a wide prospect that we are yet to see and that we need to talk about more. So, like what you said, really, really helped. I'm sure it has helped a lot of people that have been in the comment section. Please, while we are starting, please make sure to like, please put in your comments. So we are going to go into the engaging part, like we discussed. When people filled in the form, we have people asking, oh, they want insights on how to advance their career, they want to have experience. And based on your presentation, amazing presentation, you do have the experience. So we want you to talk about, like, I'm going to be asking you some questions before we give it to the comment section, like, to people in the crowd, like, okay, they should put in their comments as well. We have people expecting enlightenment on vet practice in the US. Some people would want to go abroad for some reasons. They want to know how to go into the vet world in the US, learn about opportunities in the aerospace like you are doing right now. If there are maybe other opportunities, even in Nigeria, so that we can look within, okay, maybe we can be more involved in this way in Nigeria, in our aerospace, because the opportunity is there. But why aren't we saying it? This is part of this whole presentation. Want to know about a wide veterinary profession. There are people that are here that final year students. They want to know how best to go about the veterinary profession. This was the expectation that people filled in while they were filling in the form. So the first question I want to ask, the first question I wanted to ask, you mentioned that you didn't want to be in the army. That was not really your goal, but you actually stayed. Okay, sorry, but you
Yeah.
actually stayed for at least 3 years. I want you to
Yes.
talk about that in aspect of like the waiting period as a veterinarian, the waiting period generally as a veterinarian. If this is not what you expect, but you have a plan to go somewhere, how do you make do of the present situation that you are in as a veterinarian?
Um, I'll just say, as a veterinarian, like I said, I joined the okay. I initially pursued veterinary pathology, and within that knowledge of doing veterinary pathology, I learned of the Army having the best veterinary pathology program worldwide, and I was hoping to get into that program.
Okay.
I was hoping to get into it, so I joined the Army with that hope, and it didn't transpire fully the way I wanted. Now, they did hire me as a veterinary pathologist because, again, I was doing really cool stuff with electron microscopy. I mean, I was doing great research there, great opportunity with that, and it was the job. And then I was training with the individuals that were in that program as far as the top program. It was called the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology. Don't know if that's the same name now, but that was the name of the program back then. And I was training with them, and their job, it would have been great to be in the program because their job was just to study. I mean, can you imagine my job? They're getting paid routine, and all they did was study. Well, I was working and trying to catch up, and I could not keep up with what they were doing, and it was overwhelming for me. And I wound up deciding to myself, okay, um, I don't know if I can continue trying to do this. I'm doing the best I can, but I can't continue at that pace. And I was at a point where when you initially join the Army as a U.S. citizen, you're 3 years, and then they give you what's called sign a document to extend on. And trust me, my career has not been a straightforward, easy pathway. Okay, guys, there's been issues that came up where I've made decisions to pivot. I was kind of put in a position where if I didn't continue on, that they were going to put me in a different role, and I wouldn't have liked that probably role. I wouldn't have liked it. So since I was at a point in my career where I could decide on staying or leaving, I decided to look for other options. Now, I enjoy being active duty, military. The United States also is one of the sectors where you're still active duty with it. So I basically applied for that and resigned my commission in the Army, say on a Friday, and started my commission at the United States Public Health Service on that Monday. I lost no time. So I figured out how to pivot and make it into my best interest. When I was in the public health service, now I have more control over my career. When you're in the Army, you really don't have that much control. You might have control of your first assignment, but after that, it's wherever they want to send you. And if you, I hate to say it, if you had a commanding officer that didn't like you, so I didn't want that to happen. So I made the choice and researched it and figured out a way I can continue on and go down that pathway, being active duty, serving my country, but in a different sector, basically.
Okay.
So that's what I did there. It just wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. I'll just put that. It wasn't for me. I enjoyed that experience, but there were other issues in there that I didn't like. So made a change.
I think the major point we can get from there is that we should know when to pivot from a path when we are ready, when you're ready, just move. Just move. Just move.
Yeah.
Okay.
Never
So,
always
okay,
you know what, when you're in a role or position, always keep your eyes open for other opportunities.
yes.
You might be focused on that, but don't lose sight of other opportunities around you, because you might have to make a change. You don't want to be a point where you have no choice. That's what you don't want. You don't want to be there. You've got to have plan B, okay? And just, you got to have it just a different plan, potentially what am I going to do kind of thing, and make it work. And that's kind of what I did in that situation. And it was one of the smartest things I could have done with that, honestly.
Okay,
really,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Like we used to say here, do not keep all your eggs, do not keep all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah. You've got to keep your eyes open of opportunities, honestly, and keep what I've always done too is when you meet people, keep that contact. You just
Mm,
never know where it's going to lead.
yes.
Back in years ago, it was business cards. If you give me your business card, I'm going to contact you. Be aware, we will communicate. And just keep ideas and keep moving forward, because you just never know the opportunity that's still gonna come before you with that. But that was my reasoning for as far as that. But honestly, it was really a smart thing that I did. I enjoyed also, like I said, switching to the public health service. It allowed us to work in different federal agencies as a veterinarian, and I did a lot of different public health related roles.
Rules.
Um, so I enjoyed that a lot. Food safety. Okay, looking back, it was great that I did veterinary pathology, because that's helped me with a lot of things I've done. The food safety side, um, that was an interesting role, because I'll be honest with you, Dr. Deborah and everybody, I stopped cooking chicken. I was at poultry plants. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't handle it. It's like, I am not eating that. If it was cooked, I would eat it. But looking at it, I would go to grocery stores or markets and you see meat, and I was like, oh, I just couldn't deal with it. But um, I learned a lot. What I learned from that is more the regulations and how
Mm,
important they were. So I started getting introduced to that, and it is interesting, and it does have a purpose. So everything I've done, honestly, kind of tags and touches together in the profession, and honestly
mm.
has led me to where I am today.
So one lesson we should learn, wherever path you are on, you have to look forward. Like it could affect your next role. It
Right,
could affect if you hadn't gone through the pathology role, you might not have ended up in public health.
right.
Or yeah, so every role is important, every stage is important. I would like to ask, how exactly did you, for people that are interested in public health, because I actually love the public health sector. It's very, very wide. You
Mhm.
are able to be involved in a lot of places. And I think that's where you talked about a disaster call, where you talked about saving pets while there was a disaster in
Mhm.
a particular place. And I think that's related to public health. Um,
Yes,
sort of, it's
it
related.
is.
So,
It,
how did you dive into for people that are maybe interested, did you go study public health at a particular university? And then afterwards, how did you go into the public health sector in general? So that people can clearly have a what they should do, especially for people that are just graduating or they want to graduate, because there are students here, there are people that, even people that have graduated, lecturers, how did they dive into that path? And yeah, that's it.
yeah, well, I think it's a good idea. As far as public health related, veterinary public health issues, a great program that I participated in was the University of Iowa's. It's called the practice MPH for practicing veterinarians. Is the program, the title. They still exist. We were like early on. We were like cohort number 5, and back in 20. I think we started in 2011, but it's an outstanding program. I had been thinking about getting an MPH, Master of Public Health, for years, but I kept researching different universities, and a lot of them to me were more focused on human medicine. And I hate to say it, I'm a veterinarian at true heart. I really don't care about human medicine that much, as far as that's just not about what I'm about. I love
Mm,
animals and I care about relations with that. But this program touched on all the veterinary public health issues. Could have been, I mean, of course, we had food safety, zoonoses, disaster preparedness. I mean, all of these things came together and it focused on animals, and best program ever. Coolest thing about the program is that you don't have to go to University of Iowa. It's actually majority of it is online. So
mm.
you do 2 weeks in 2 weeks the first year and 2 weeks the second year of the program in Iowa. And they pay for it. They pay for it, and then the rest of it is online training and stuff like that, which was a challenge, guys. Remember, I told you there was a big difference between those. I graduated from vet school in 1993, finished an MPH in 2013. Man, that was hard. It seemed like it was harder than vet school. Because it
Mm,
maybe because life happened. I'm a
yeah.
single parent. I got a son and I'm trying to do all this stuff and I'm working full time. That was hard 2 years, but I had a great cohort of colleagues that we went through it together.
Mm,
We would meet and have a private Facebook group and go over classwork together, make sure we were all on the same page and understood. I mean, I had a really good support team in reference to that. So really glad it was really one of the best things I could have done is to complete that program. Because again, it took me now where I was veterinary pathology in a lab. Now it opened doors to other things that I can do. So getting that additional when say if you're stuck in your career thinking as a veterinarian, I don't know what to do. I want to get out of maybe what I'm doing. That additional degree will open more doors for you. So it's really important.
mm. Okay. Well, before I let's ask the first question.
Okay.
Um, is your pet travel work limited to the USA only, or also outside USA? Like, while you work with the Delta airline, do you
Mhm.
go outside of the USA? Like, how do you go about that?
Well, I'm working with Delta, and that's more you. I mean, it's U.S., but also we do have international flights. So whatever I do is going to impact internationally as well. Um, the when pets fly, as far as education I'm providing there, that can go, U.S. or outside of the U.S. I do have it set up where I can serve as a consultant in reference to that as well. So whatever is needed, I'm able to provide information to help folks. And it's not just necessarily U.S. based. I'm definitely willing to kind of help folks. Say if you're traveling from your country in Africa and you want to come to the United States, I'm definitely willing to assist you with that process of finagling getting into the United States because it actually is difficult now. I don't know if you guys are aware, CDC, as I mentioned, CDC regulates the importation of dogs coming to the country. Well, they have
Yeah.
just increased their regulations, and it's complicated. So you will need assistance on that.
Yeah, and what you just said, how complicated it is. What are the requirements? The thing is, I know that they are going to be different. The requirement is going to be different coming to Nigeria because we have different requirements.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow they would be related. So let's just hear what the requirements are from
Okay.
your
Well,
when it comes to pet
it,
travel.
it it's going to vary by the country now. It's going to vary by the countries because of the rabies risk. Remember, CDC is going to regulate the dogs coming in based upon prevention of rabies. So, depending on the country, if you're in a country that has high risk for rabies, then your requirements are going to be more stringent. You're going to need to have a rabies titer, and the titers that it has to be taken at a specific laboratory as far as the results. Microchipping, the vaccinations, there's a lot more involved kind of with it. So it all depends on your country with that.
Yeah.
All
So,
depends.
I, okay. So what you said depends on the country, depends on the
Mm-hmm.
modality. So but microchipping, all these things, I think you really need to go invest more on reading from the Nigerian aspect for people to be able to know more about that. Another question for a pet
Mm-hmm.
to travel, what are pets the pre-travel events? What are the pre-travel events? Like, okay, what do you tell the pet owner to do? What are the requirements that they have to
What?
complete to
Oh,
ensure
that's
that
see. You know what? The interesting thing here in the U.S. is that remember I told you the logistic folks know they have to get documents. They know they have to get a crate and whatever to get ready. They don't tell
yeah.
them a time frame. To meet those requirements, because what we're trying to do as far as the documentation, we want to make sure the animal meets requirements for that destination country. So if I'm coming to Nigeria, I got to make sure that pet meets all the requirements into your country. And it
Mhm.
might not take, well, it's not going to take within 10 days. It might take 3 to 4 months to meet all those requirements and everything. So pet owners need to be aware. It's not something as simple as I need a document. No, you have to make
Yeah.
sure your pet meets the requirements. And within meeting the requirements, I have, as a veterinarian, we have to do diagnostic tests. We have to do, like I said, microchipping. All these things has to get done. And it might be a sequence to these too. And when I say sequence, um, they might require microchipping, then rabies vaccination. If you do the rabies vaccination first and then microchip, you might have to start all over again because there's an order to everything that's being done. And pet owners usually don't know that. So it takes time. You've really got to get a lot of education for them. I'm trying to push for more information to be shared on that, so pet owners aren't going to come up to a veterinarian and forcing them like, oh, I need this now. It's like, no, it takes time. So education, honestly, the education piece is lacking as far as pet travel, making sure pet owners knowing what they need to do if they want to go out of the country.
Mm, okay. So before we get all the questions, you said something about your interview with the Delta airline before.
Mm-hmm.
You had to you told them what they needed to control for that role, and I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important for people who are interested in taking up roles wherever they're found. How do you have that confidence to do that in an interview, to be able to tell them, okay, I
I
see I see this is where you're going to. I know what I have as an individual, and this is what I'm willing to offer. So how do you go about that and giving it to them, like as an like wherever you are?
it's a hard one, but you know what? If you don't speak up for yourself, who will sometimes, you know? Um, and again, I don't know what came over me to do that because I don't normally do that. Something just told me I need to say it because, there, I wasn't the only candidate and I really wanted to roll and I wanted them to understand what the role really needed. And again, I spoke up because a lot of the questions that were being asked during the interview to me were clinical based. They wanted to know, um, well, it wasn't that difficult for me for an interview. They wanted to know if I knew about the breeds that were restricted for air transport by cargo. And of course, I could spew off a bunch of breeds that not because of their facial conformation, they're not the best breeds to be transported in cargo. So I knew that. So I could answer all their questions, but it just, to me, wasn't enough. It
Mm,
wasn't enough. So I just kind of just decided just to say it. And was surprised at the outcome. But it goes to show you sometimes, again, in some roles, and you might say, okay, how would you find opportunities? I think the opportunities exist in your country. You
yeah,
have airlines, they
yeah.
transport animals. I think the
Mm,
opportunity does exist. You got to get in front of folks that will see the significance of what a veterinarian can do. That's the issue.
mm,
As I said, I'm really thankful that at the time the Delta's COO basically decided that's what he wanted for Delta. I'm really thankful for that. Um, Now, so that gave me my end to be able to do that, even though, like I said, I didn't plan it, but that gave me the end to kind of share that information. I don't see other airlines doing that, and I don't understand why. I really don't understand why, because we have a skill set that sets us apart from anyone else, all the things that we're able to do. And I don't see why they have not realized it yet. So,
mm.
but I do believe the opportunity exists. If you have an airline company
Yeah,
in your
yeah.
country, there's an opportunity. It's there.
Hmm. Okay, so next question. We have like two more questions right now. Is there a way you can collaborate with the department in charge of pet importation at the Federal Department of Veterinary Livestock and Pest Control? And it's also asking about the Nigerian Quarantine Services
Let's,
also. Okay, is there a way you can collaborate with
well,
the department? Is there
if
a way
we,
you can? Okay, sorry.
well, if we can maybe start a communication and just start talking about the significance. I mean, it all
Exactly.
starts from a conversation. I
Yeah.
don't, my role, I did work in the federal government. I'm not with them now, but
Mhm.
it's all from conversation, trying and start opening the door if they're open to that conversation. Um, so I think it's a possibility that it can, but are there sections within your federal government that focuses on animal welfare? Because that might be your end right there.
Yeah.
And you can say animal welfare and animal transportation because you want to make sure you comply with that during transport. So there's your end right there. But yeah, I think it's going to start with communication. And hey, Dr. Deborah, let's work together. Maybe we can figure something out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think definitely we can figure something out as a team. You
Hmm.
can communicate with me or Dr. Nelva on LinkedIn, or like she mentioned at the end of our slide,
Hmm.
a slide, She's on Facebook, she's on LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn. You can just message and we'll be in conversation about all these things. Next question. What is your opinion? This is more, I think this is more relatable. What is your opinion about placement of pets during travel, in cabin or as a cargo? So
Yeah,
what
that's a good question. I mean, in the U.S., and again, I'm not sure how you guys do it, but in the U.S., as far as being in cabin transport of pets, they put up new regulations regarding that because there was a point where people would. There was a point where they said if you had an emotional support dog or emotional support animal, it will be allowed. But then you had these crazy people that bring their emotional support peacock, their emotional support pig. They were doing all these crazy things.
Mm,
So you have the emotional support animal, and then you have the true service dogs, the people that really required them. And what was happening is you had dogs fighting, dog bites. I mean, dogs eliminating on the aircraft. I mean, all these crazy things were happening. So they set up a new regulation where no more emotional support animals on board, period. Um, so, of course, the general population is upset in the U.S. because now they can't bring their pet like they wanted to.
really?
Um, they only allow pets if they allow service dogs, of course. They're required. That's mandatory, and they allow pets if they fit in a soft-sided carrier underneath at your say in your foot space. They allow that. So,
Okay.
so they got to be small, basically, and everything. My thoughts on which one's better or which one's safer. I personally don't think going by cargo is it. I don't believe it's unsafe. I don't believe that. I believe if they're properly prepared, acclimated to their crate in right size crate, I think they'll do fine. Um, there has been incidents of deaths, but the numbers are lower. And in the U.S., we monitor that data through the Department of Transportation. And I'll just tell you, from say 2016 to 2022, there's about 2.7 million pets transported by air, and this is between say 15 airlines. 2.7 million. There were only 167 animal incidents. These are going to be injury, escapes, or deaths. So 167 over 2.7 million.
Right.
Not as bad as everyone thinks. And I don't want to belittle the 167 because it does matter. So please be aware of that. But of the 167, I've analyzed, again, I'm a geek. Of that data, I've analyzed the data. Of that data,
Okay.
good portion of the deaths were due to underlying medical conditions. Good
Mm.
portion of the injuries were these pets trying to break out of their crates, which meaning they weren't acclimated to the crate. So there's
Yeah.
things, like I said, there's an opportunity for us as veterinarians that we can give that education out to help better prepare animals for transportation. So if they're acclimated, the number of injuries will go down. If they're medically fit for travel, the number of deaths will go down. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ma.
Mhm.
One thing you mentioned, like two things actually, that I think we have to juxtapose as people. Like, I think there are a lot of people that are interested in going into pet transportation.
Mhm.
Is you have to do your job, but at the same time, you have to understand that issues might come up. Issues might come up, and it's very important that when you do your job, you do it very well. Put in the
Mhm.
medical record, make sure you get the diagnostic plan ahead of time, so that when issues do come up, it's not on you or it's not on the whatever organization you're working on or you're
Mhm.
working with. I think it's very very important that you like do your job, but also do what's right.
Yeah.
Moving on, if there are more questions, we are about to round up as much as possible. We are about to round up. If there are any more questions, but before that, let me just ask one more question from the expectations that people are at for this event. What? Okay. Okay, what unique opportunities do you see for veterinarians in the field of international animal transport? Apart from okay, how you serve right now in the aerospace in the airline, what opportunities have you maybe seen in the US that we could maybe even look for in Nigeria if it doesn't exist? But
It
if it does,
it would
what
it
are
would be nice. It would be nice to see if you can build up within Nigeria as far as having more. We need as the veterinary. industry itself. And think about it, we're veterinarians, but also there's a lot of animal health, people that are trained on animal care. We need to be integrated more in the airline industry because again, if the airline is transporting animals, wouldn't it be better for someone who actually is familiar with animals to help with the transportation?
Yeah.
Because they will be able to recognize the animal in distress. They're more likely to recognize it. And that story I told you guys, the reason why that agent recognized it, you know why he recognized it? Because his son is a veterinarian. That's how he knew. That's how he recognized it. That's why he was sensitive to it. He said, this doesn't look right. He said, if my son was here, I know my son he would think something's wrong. That's how. Most agents, I mean, you might get agents who have personal pets of their own, but there's a lot of people that don't, and they don't, that don't have pets. So they are not familiar with what it looks like when an animal is in distress. So having folks on staff that have an animal background, animal care, definitely helps as far as handling. Having someone within the airline that's as a veterinarian that's familiar with the regulations, familiar with making sure the animals are transported properly or with animal welfare regulations in mind, that's going to be a big help too. So we need to be inside as far as headquarters within the airline, and we need to be out there helping handling as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Ma. Thank you, Ma. Let me just take one more question from my end, and then we'll round up, and I would talk about Farmalat, but let me just talk about one more thing, one more question, and that will be it. Okay, that's okay. Let's stop here. Um, let's stop here. Thanks again for being here. We really do appreciate this. I really hope we'll have more interactions like this as time goes on. Don't forget to, if you want to have conversation with the doctor, please, you can follow her on LinkedIn, Facebook. She actually does a lot of webinars like this on LinkedIn. She collaborates with a lot of. I've been in some. I've attended some. So make sure to follow her on LinkedIn so you get more knowledge about things like this if you are interested. And also, please make sure to follow us on all our platforms on Farmalats. Would really be interested. We talk about things like this. Last week we talked about snakes. We talked about a lot of things in general. So
So you do the same thing? That's great.
yes,
You need to send me what you're doing and everything so I can get an idea. So you said you were talking about snakes?
yeah, I wasn't the one involved, but we invited people in
Right.
that professionals and snake business and toxins and everything.
And
So
that's good. And then also just to say too, I mean, I focus a lot on pets, but and again, for a lot of my presentations and everything I do focus a lot on pets, but the other animals, zoo animals, the different animals there that need to be transported, there's regulations, or as far as the container requirements, shipping them properly, it all is going to vary by the animal species. So all that's really important to know, and everything. So there's a lot of interesting things. I mean, like I said, animal transportation sector, honestly, I think is wide open. I think there's potentially a lot of opportunities there for veterinarians. So.
okay. Thank you, Ma. So like I said at the beginning, this is an engaging platform. So follow us on Farmalad, and also the people that commented on the comment section. There might be someone there who might help your career. So engage with people, communicate, follow each other, let them know that okay, this is what you do, this is what you're interested in, and who knows where your career will go from there. So thank you again for thanks again, Dr. Nelva, for your presence, and thanks everyone. And this will be the end of today's Farmalat Aspire event. So there will be another one next month. Please make sure to follow us and do all that needs to be done. Thank you, Ma. Bye.
Thank you.